All right, so we are currently live. I don't see it up on the other screen, so most people will get a notification that we have gone live, and they'll pop in. So,
Cool.
yeah, let's see. I'm going to refresh here, see if we are live. All right. Oh, there we are. We are live right now. So, um, and it looks like it's frozen, so I'm not really sure. There we go. Okay, we are live. And I'm going to mute. We are muted, and we are on. So yeah, we'll wait a bit to see anybody joining. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and give a few likes and see.
Cool.
Okay, so we have we are live now. So welcome everybody. Alec and I will just be talking for the next minute or so to before we start at 9 o'clock. Really appreciate everybody joining us. As you're coming in, please give us a few likes, give us a few comments, let us know where you are coming from. This is Alec and I. Here we go. We'll do this first. There we go. I have my banner ticking now. So, hi, Jasmeet. I see you on the live stream. So, Jasmeet is here from India, joining us from India. All right. So, welcome to Progressive HR Talks Live. This is our live launch. We're very excited to have everybody. I am here with Alec Shaw. We are just waiting for everybody to come into the live stream. If you're on, please give us a few likes, give us a few celebrations, share this live stream. We're going to be talking about blockchain today and progressive HR. Share this live stream if you'd like to on LinkedIn with anyone that you think would be a benefit. And then also let us know in the comments where you're joining from. So we've got 4 people. We'll probably wait another minute before we start out. So welcome to Progressive HR Talks Live, our first episode with Alec Shaw. We're going to be talking about blockchain and progressive HR today. Please like and comment and let us know where you're joining from. So we'll just wait a few more minutes.
I almost said good morning, everyone, but it appears that we have some attendees from all over the world. So that's exciting.
Yes.
And if you're in the States, good morning. Gentlemen from India, good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, so I think we're gonna start. I thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I'm really excited to launch Progressive HR Talks Live. Progressive HR is something that I've been working on for a very long time. And it's really about how we're all unique, resourceful humans. And we have so much potential and so many innate skills that I wanted to talk with people like Alec Shaw about their skills, about their unique talents. And so everyone can understand and learn more about each other. So if you're just tuning in now, which I see a few more people coming in, like and comment and let us know where you're coming from. So I'm coming from Madison, Wisconsin. Where are you today, Alec?
Yeah, I'm in Glen Ellen, Illinois, so a Chicago suburb. Yeah, it's a beautiful day out here, so I got no complaints.
You can see the sun shining on your face.
I know I'm gonna be like half sunburned by the end of this, but you'll see me shuffling around. Yeah.
So before we get into our questions, I wanted to let you guys know a little bit about Alec. Alec is a Wisconsin 25 under 25, Wisconsin Innovation 25 under 25, and he is a blockchain and crypto expert. He is the co-founder of the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. Alec, can you give us about a 30-second overview about what the Blockchain Consortium is about?
Yeah, so the blockchain consortium is the result of a couple years worth of kind of research and effort from myself, some representatives at Marquette University, as well as five other Midwestern universities. What we've done is basically just joined forces to create a talent pool of young, driven engineers, kind of futurist type thinking students that are uniquely driven. And we're hoping to pair them with really, top caliber jobs after school. And then while as an undergraduate, it functions as a consulting firm. So we can provide these students with hands-on experiential learning opportunities in the form of consulting projects. So it provides value to the corporation because they get young, hungry talent, and then the students get hands-on consulting experience as an undergrad. So it's really unique, and we're really excited about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Alec. All right, so we have a few more people joining us. I see Sherry St. Marie is joining us from Madison. Hi, Sherry. And if you're just joining us now, I'm Corinne Woodman Hollebeck, and this is Progressive HR Talks Live. This is our first episode, so thank you for joining us. Like and comment and let us know where you're joining from. We're going to be moving into our first question. And so this is a really important one. I think everybody wants to know this. Alec, what are you currently watching on Netflix and why? And of those that are on the live stream, let us know what you're currently watching on Netflix and why. Would love to know more about you too.
Great first question. So I'm currently rewatching Breaking Bad, and the reason I'm doing that is twofold. First off, my family had never seen it, so since I've been home due to COVID, I kind of forced my family to all sit down and watch Breaking Bad because it's just exhilarating, and everyone should go watch it. Um, and then the second reason is it kind of is like adding some like action to my life. Like I could watch action movies, but I like following kind of the lineage of someone's character. So Breaking Bad is the perfect mix of, excitement, some action, and then yeah, the whole meth thing kind of creeps me out a little bit, but it's exciting and my family's loving it. So
That's
what about you?
awesome. What about me? Well,
Hmm.
I was going to say that, 1 second, I'm still working on that. Just Jasmine's watching Shark Tank on Netflix. So,
Great choice.
yeah. Can you see his comment in there? This is one of the things Alec and I were playing around with earlier. So you can see the comment from Jasmine.
Yep, popped right up. Working
Awesome.
beautifully.
Awesome. So, I'm currently watching Cobra Kai.
So give us a little breakdown.
Oh, okay. I thought everybody knows what Cobra Kai is. So it is basically following Johnny and Daniel LaRusso from Karate Kid back in the 80s, following them, like I think it is 25 years later, and what they're doing. And Johnny is kind of like this broken down, I wouldn't want to say loser, but like person who's kind of lost his way. And Daniel's like this big hotshot car dealership owner, and he does all this like karate stuff, and it's how they find their path together again. So if anybody
Interesting.
wants to have a recommendation for Netflix, I would say go ahead and watch Cobra Kai. It's pretty cool. So all right, so on to our first blockchain question, and this one is also very important. So Alec, can you tell us what is blockchain?
Yes, what a great place to start. So a blockchain, it might be a little bit sad for people to hear, I guess, but it's going to be a lot less sexy than a lot of these marketers make it out to sound. And that's just because it's a new, exciting technology and there's a lot of money to be made. So some people are uh, talking very highly of the technology in its very infant stages. But, anyways, blockchain very simply is just a technology tool. It's a piece of infrastructure that isn't very exciting or sexy when you just look exactly at it. And that is because a blockchain is just a very, very secure database. And this database is write only, meaning that you can add information to that database, but you can never delete information from the database. So it's globally accessible, meaning that you don't have to ask permission from anyone to use the database. It is, like I mentioned, write only. So you can add to it, but you cannot remove from it. And it's just very simply a place where you can store information. But because of the nature, it has some very specific use cases, which I'm sure we'll get into. A blockchain itself is just a very secure, slow, write-only database.
And it's decentralized, right?
Yes, it is decentralized, and that's one of the key attributes that are definitely worth mentioning. So instead of, because you might think, hey, it's in a database that has high security. Why wouldn't I just use Amazon? And that would be a very natural kind of rebuttal to say, hey, we should use a blockchain. Well, why not just use Amazon? It's faster, it's almost as secure, but it's not decentralized. So the decentralization is very important because once it's decentralized, you can then trust the information that's actually on that ledger because you know there hasn't been some individual that changed the data on you, or manipulated any of the data to try to trick any of the participants. This would be fraud. There isn't any one central party that can change the information on the ledger. So the decentralization is very critical for people to then trust the data that's on it.
And why else would we trust the blockchain? I've heard that also is that nobody can use it for, they can't use it for their benefits. Like I can't go in and say, okay, somebody's paying me X amount of dollars to highlight this information.
Yeah. So you might think, well, how do we ensure that there's no collusion, that there's not any backdoor deals being made here? Because there's a lot of money being thrown around in this blockchain ecosystem. It's like, who do I trust here? And the best part about decentralization is you don't have to trust any one individual. You sure as heck don't have to trust me. What you do trust is the code. So at the center of these systems, there's code, and the code is public. Anyone in the world can audit it. And then on the fringe, there are humans, where in the current model, for example, the AWS model, it's humans at the middle who you're trusting. And they're controlling the technology and saying, you can trust us to keep the data secure, instead of, I'm going to trust this code, this decentralized code that I know for a fact cannot be changed, instead of trusting a for-profit company to do that exact same service in a less effective way.
And so you mentioned, was it AWS? What is that?
Yeah. AWS is Amazon Web Services, which is basically like, hey, I need to store a bunch of data. I need to use a bunch of computing power, but I don't particularly need to buy a bunch of computers and put them in my basement, or a bunch of servers and put them in my basement. This was a big challenge with startup companies. When they first started getting users, they had to scale, and they only had one option. They had to buy a bunch of big servers and put them inside of their physical office. But AWS came around and said, you know what, we'll buy all the servers and you can just rent them from us, which works great for most, startups, most consumer applications. But when we're starting to talk about a globally accessible database for financial transactions, which is what the blockchain is used for, and it's storing extremely sensitive data, we no longer want to trust a company as the custodian of that information. We'd much rather trust a database that no one owns. And something that's worth real fast mentioning, you might say, well, how the heck does no one own this database? Amazon Web Services is owned by Jeff Bezos and his shareholders. So who owns, say, the Bitcoin blockchain or the Ethereum blockchain? And that's where cryptocurrency comes into play. So you can actually interact with a blockchain and never have to touch cryptocurrency. And this is going to be like the one time that I mention cryptocurrency in today's chat. Um, but the cryptocurrency is critical because the cryptocurrency is how the blockchain is owned by everyone instead of just being owned by one person. The value of the cryptocurrency keeps these systems secure, but you can absolutely interact with these systems as a user without ever having to look at cryptocurrency, without even having to know what the heck it is. You shouldn't have to worry about it. Just know cryptocurrency is what keeps the network secure. Once you have a secure database that is public, you can do some really, really exciting things.
So when we're talking about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, so a person like myself that is, I mean, I know some, I would say I kind of like mediocre technology knowledge. Why should I care? Why should I care about this? How can I use this? You know, we hear a lot about Bitcoin and Ethereum and cryptocurrency and that we should be investing in it. You know, is that the only thing? So what's important for people watching today as well? Anybody who's watching today, please throw in the comments any questions you have for Alec. Alec's here for you to answer your deepest blockchain or Bitcoin question.
Yeah, real fast on the note of investing into these. I would actually highly advise against putting any sort of money into these markets. They're hyper volatile. No one has really any idea what the intrinsic value of these assets are. You can do some traditional like valuation metrics, like discounted cash flow valuation, which is very popular in traditional finance. You can do that, but then you might think, well, at what revenue multiple are they supposed to be trading at? So no one has any idea what these things are worth. If you're gonna decide to gamble, which is what it is, I mean, only put enough money in that you're very comfortable losing, because like I mentioned, the cryptocurrency is only needed to secure this database. And no one has any idea what the value of that cryptocurrency needs to be in order to secure it and in order to provide adequate security. It could be at today's value. It could be at a value 10 times that of today's. It could be at a value 1/10 of today's, and it will still do its job. So from an investment standpoint, do your research. It's a gamble. It's literally a gamble. But the question was, what can you do with this stuff and why should anyone care? How you have to be thinking of blockchain and smart contracts, I'm sure we'll get into that. And you can think of it as a new tool set. So it's like, you know, all of these engineers who are just these brilliant builders, they just happen to be building a digital product. They now have a new tool in their tool belt, one that you can use to design applications with use cases that have never been seen before. So let me just give you a quick example. Say even just like with a Venmo model, like I wish to send you $10, Korean. What actually happens is my phone sends an electronic signature that is easily fakeable by just typing in a password to Venmo. Venmo then calls my bank. The bank then contacts the Swift network, executes a transaction. The second bank then notifies Venmo, and then an IOU is given to Kareen representing the $10 that will be settled in 2 days. All of those people along the process, they take fees, and this is simply because this is the current infrastructure that's available and has been available the last 30 years. But ever since 2016, when Ethereum came out, it provided engineers and young developers with a new tool. And this new tool allows for use cases like payment transfers, anything that would require trust. Because sure, Korean, you trust me, but not blindly enough for me just to send you some random numbers on a screen and you think it's money, right? We need that central bank to build the trust bridge between you and I. And before, you would use certain tools and languages in order to build that trust bridge. And you'd have to use companies and people. But today, with blockchain and those new tools, you can build applications that have a trust bridge built into them. And that's simply because people will trust the blockchain and no longer have to trust the centralized institutions like the banks, like the clearing houses, or the silos, or the companies that act as data silos. Because really, all they're doing is saying, you two should trust each other. You're both good people, but you don't trust each other. Just trust me. Now we can say, Kareen, I trust you. Kareen trusts Alec. We both trust the blockchain. Now we can build some really exciting applications.
I think that's really interesting. And I've got a few questions that have come in, but I wanted to make a comment is that, I love Venmo. I love PayPal because it's made my life as an entrepreneur easier, getting, money from payments from my clients. However, I really don't like that transaction fee. I would just love to not have that 1 to 3% that PayPal charges me. And I
Absolutely,
also,
absolutely. It's just, and that's just really because the current financial infrastructure for a long time, and still today even, is our best option. And someone might say, why on earth do we need this blockchain thing? We already have an immaculate banking system that works exceptionally here in the United States. You only pay a couple bips and you can transfer massive sums of money. But then the second you start talking about global transactions, you start running into regulatory compliance concerns. You start running into cross-border payment with regulations and currency controls on the controls on the currency in certain countries. It's great in America, and it is not nearly the same experience for everyone living outside of America. Even in the EU, it's very close to the experience for Americans, but it's not quite up there yet. So blockchain enables a globally native financial infrastructure. So we can have the Venmo-like experience, but extend that to a global scope and not have to particularly subject ourselves just to the regulation in America. I'll get into the details of that later.
those
So
regulations those regulations can change at any time. It's dependent on our government. And another thing I want to mention is, like, when we talk about trust, is like, we as people are trying to build trust between each other. I wish, sometimes that we could just, people just let us build the trust, trust in
yeah,
humanity, trust in each other.
and
Which
it's very interesting once the trust in the technology is assumed, then you can start really doing exciting things, because then it goes back to not just trusting this larger than life entity, which might be a company. It kind of brings you back to a humanistic drive where you say, well, yeah, I trust the platform in which Kareen is on, but let me learn more about Kareen herself, instead of trusting the central intermediary that's hidden behind a veil of kind of secrecy.
Yeah. And I mean, companies, we're not saying trusting companies is bad. We're just saying that, we could use that interaction or that engagement with companies for other things. So, but I want to move to
Absolutely.
our first question. And this is from, let's see if this all shows up here. Hi, Nicole. Great points, Alec. I primarily know about blockchain in the realm of HR. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Specifically resume building and housing. I have had conversations about the universal application. Is this the same application of, I believe she meant blockchain, right? Rather than blockchain.
So let me do a quick Google search, because is universal application a technical, like, is it a standard that a company is pushing? Because I have many thoughts on, are you referring to kind of like the universal college application?
Nicole, if you're still on the stream, could you type in what you're referring to in regards to universal application?
But I can speak to the broad strokes real fast as Nicole is adding that response. There are So some might ask, hey, Alec, you're talking a lot about this cool new toolkit that engineers and developers have now, but where are all the applications? It's like, hey, this sounds a lot like 2017. It's going to be big, it's going to be grand, but where are the applications? And we're tackling two significant barriers when it comes to actual adoption of this technology. One is a technical barrier, which I spoke a little bit about the last 15 minutes or so, which is how do you actually build a database that is that does not require human interaction to establish the trust. So that is a very important thing. It's kind of it sounds abstract, but it's like, how do you build a database that humans don't have to monitor, but you would still trust enough to store $1 billion in it? That's a very hard challenge to solve. It has to be hyper secure. You have to be able to audit it 24/7, and you have to be able to go back and prove that the information had not been changed, and more importantly, that the proof the information hasn't been changed. So we have finally figured out how to do that. It's used a complex game theory mechanisms. It uses this concept called crypto economics. So it actually incentivizes people with money in order to do things to keep this thing secure. So that's number one. That's solved. It's a little slow still, but it's solved. Number two is the social and political challenge of creating frameworks to interact with these tools. So that might be something like you were just speaking to, Nicole, like this universal application. That's a perfect example of a standardized framework that people in the community agree on that can be put onto the blockchain. So that way, you know that if you see a universal application that has the signature at the bottom of it from Alec Shaw, my official blockchain account, you can trust that Alec Shaw did in fact sign and endorse that universal application. So what we're working to do is create those type of standards. There we go. Sorry for the correct technical term is industry standard. So this is just very simply something like the universal application that runs on top of the new exciting blockchain database that allows for applications to talk to one another to actually begin delivering value. So these are being tested now. I envision in the next, couple months, we'll start seeing some real network effects happen, because once a industry standard is agreed upon, we then need people to start using that industry standard. It's kind of the chicken and the egg issue. It's like, hey, I'm on Facebook. You say you should add me on Facebook. Well, I don't have a Facebook. What's Facebook? So now the tech works. The standards have almost been agreed upon. And once they are, everyone has to start onboarding the technology. So it's a longer uphill battle, but it's going to be what you can do with such universal applications, interoperable data sets, and trustworthy digital resumes will be worth the battle, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'll be the first in line for my digital ID once they start offering. I know that we talked,
Yep.
A few years back about CU Ledger offering digital IDs, but that's not. I wouldn't consider that to be true digital ID in the way that I'm thinking of is, true trustworthy digital ID. I'm going to go to the second question that we have here from Jasmeet. Do I have to be an expert before investing? Also, even if we don't have any idea of the value right now, do you feel it will get more structured in the future? And for those just tuning in, that's back to the question about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
So first off, this isn't financial advice. If you want to take any advice, it'd probably be not to buy any. I personally have a uncomfortable amount of my net worth in it, but that's just because I really have been deeply invested emotionally and from sweat equity perspective in the space for some years now. And I allocated a little bit of, my money there just because I'm like, okay, I'm already investing from a sweat equity perspective. Like I started getting involved in this space in 2016, and the first club that I started at Marquette University was in 2017. So I figured if I'm going to be investing all of this time and energy, I might as well also invest a little bit of money. Um, but when you're doing this stuff, I mean, the real value comes from differentiating from traditional applications available in the market. And the only true differentiator is radical decentralization because it enables trust minimization. So, with that in mind, I would not look at these consortium chains. I would look at real public chains because they're building some real exciting applications, not just hiding behind a veil of marketing. So you can think of those as the top 5 coins on CoinMarketCap are a good starting place to do research.
I think that's pretty sound advice. I know myself, I have like, I would say four cents in, or four Steam Chain, because I joined Steam Chain, kind of like a Facebook for blockchain,
Yeah.
back about a year ago. So I have myself have four. I don't think it's worth hardly anything, maybe a few cents. That's it. So, but I
Awesome.
got
Hey, well, shout out Steam Chain and Michael Kremecki, and they're doing some great work over there. They were going to come speak at our event in March, but unfortunately we had to cancel that due to COVID. But yeah, they're building a great product out of the Midwest in the blockchain space.
Yeah, and it's crazy because many people don't know this, but Milwaukee is the location of the largest blockchain conference in the Midwest, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and I hope to be able to do a 2020 conference as well. But yeah, we had some great success in 2018 at the Milwaukee Blockchain Conference. So thanks for that plug. Um, but yeah, we're just working hard to build a blockchain ecosystem here in the Midwest, and that was definitely, along the same mission for the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. So yeah.
So now probably another really important question, and most people are really wondering this, So why are we talking about blockchain on a live stream that's titled Progressive HR Talks?
Yeah, so we've spent most of this time talking about kind of the infrastructure, but what Nicole was alluding to is like, okay, let's just assume the infrastructure works. Okay, we're going to take this guy Alec's word for it. We could spend a couple months or a year doing the research to figure out how crypto economics works, or honestly, you could just take my word for it, because it does work. The network is securing hundreds of billions of dollars, so it's working. But now, what can you build on top of that? And this is where you might have heard the term smart contract. And what a smart contract is a set of rules that you can program on top of the blockchain. So you can tell the blockchain when X happens, you need to do Y. And what that means is it functions kind of like a vending machine. So when you walk up to a vending machine, you know for a fact that, you say, I don't know, some Reese's peanut butter cups are on like, D4. When you walk up to that vending machine, you click D4, it says that will cost $1.25. When you put in your dollar bill, you put in your quarter, you click D4, you know that you can trust that thing will start turning, it'll spit out your Reese's. This is exactly how smart contracts work on Ethereum. So what you can do is use the tools that you now have from Solidity, which is the code that runs on Ethereum, the most popular blockchain for things like HR. You can actually build some rule set. So this might be an onboarding procedure, for example. Might be an onboarding procedure. You can code that into the blockchain so that when you are, say, onboarding a new employee, they can use their digital identity to go through a seamless onboarding process. So, what that process would look like is there's an applicant page. Um, a new applicant has a digital identity on the Ethereum blockchain that might include a digital resume. This is very similar to what Nicole's example of the universal application might have been. And they can apply. The employer can know that the information is trusted. They can know it's authentic and they know it hasn't been manipulated. And what that would do is just streamline the onboarding process. But a critically important aspect here is that there is a universal application, that there is a digital identity. So if I could just recap that real fast, we're talking about this on a progressive HR talk because with these new tools, you can enable something called a self-sovereign identity, which is very literal in the sense that it is you. It is your legal identity, but in a digital form that you own right here on your cell phone. This is your official ID. And you might think, well, what happens if I lose my phone? It's all stored on your self-sovereign identity. This isn't an identity where you call the government and you say, hey, I need a new driver's license. It wouldn't be, you call the bank and you say, I need a new username. This would be something that you personally own. And this is only possible when you're using these new exciting open source tools. So blockchain at the bottom stores all the important data. One layer above that would be your self-sovereign identity. You can think of it as the 21st century resume. And then one layer above that is when people are going to be interacting with this new self-sovereign identity and this new digital resume. So that was a lot of information. There might be questions about that. I'll pause there for a sec.
Well, I'm going to look to see if there's questions on that. If anybody has questions on the self-sovereign identity, digital IDs, or 21st century resumes, please drop those comments in the stream. I know for me, like I can't wait until I don't have to consistently redo my resume or, change my resume to where someone is, I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the live stream on the other side there. Someone, I want to apply for a job. So, right now, rule of thumb is that you go and you change your resume to what the person is looking for in the hiring manager. And let's say we move it to the 21st century resume with a digital ID. I see a job I want to apply for. I give them my digital ID. That's it. I don't have to change anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a couple important things to highlight in that experience. So that you might say, or someone might push back and say, so it's a digital form of a resume. Who gives a crap, Alec? Why are you talking so highly of this just digitized resume? Like I use email. What's the difference, right? Once you have this self-sovereign ID, you can begin creating a dynamic, it's a way to communicate who you actually are significantly more effectively. And what I mean by that is currently there is information about you, about me, all over the internet, siloed away, and it's actually owned and property of specific for-profit companies. Their whole business model is collect all the data, don't let anyone else see it, anonymize it, and then sell it. So one, the information is not super accurate because you don't really know, there's no way to prove where the information came from. It's just coming from Apple or Google. They claim to have de-anonymized it, but that's, you never really know. And you don't really know where your personal information is going, and wherever it's going, you're not getting paid for it. So that's the actual problem in this resume space right now. You can lie on them, and the people that are actually being honest, don't have the ability to gather their information, relevant information, whether it be even things like an Amazon review. Imagine if you've shipped 2,000 units of product from your Amazon store and you've never once missed a shipment date. Extremely relevant information that it would be very difficult to prove in a job interview. But if you had a self-sovereign ID that was linked to your Amazon account, you can show them the proof that you've successfully delivered and you have the ability to deliver without having to call Amazon once. Another example might be if you're applying for a job and they say, let me see your transcript. You have to, at least at Marquette University, where I went to school, I owe them $20, and within 5 days, my employer will get my transcript. And that's just because they don't trust Alec. They only trust Marquette. But if Marquette were to upload or give permission to my self-sovereign identity upon my request to give to my employer, the employer knows it's authentic. They know that I didn't change it because they can see through my self-sovereign identity that Marquette University uploaded it. And during this whole time, they don't need to see other information about me. They wouldn't be able to see my, say, browsing history or who I've been communicating with. They would only be allowed to see what I gave them permission to see. So when I say 21st century resume, this really is going to be the future of when you say, who are you? You can show them a dynamic picture of you. And it's only information that you want to share with the counterparty. And you actually get these digital receipts proving that the counterparty has only seen very select pieces of that information, only pieces of information that you gave them permission to see. So it puts your data, it puts you back in control of your data. And as a result, allows you to more effectively communicate your skills, your passions, your ambitions, and basically, get you the job that you deserve and that you'll have the highest output in.
And as Alex said, micro credentials, showing your passion. What are the things that you can't actually put on a resume right now? I mean, we get a page and a half, two pages to tell about all about our performance in our lives and everything. And this works in the favor of you and the company. And to that point, before we go to our next question, Jasmine asks, you mean an organization will be able to run an algorithm and find the best resumes will pop up? I mean, can the tech make that possible? So that kind of leads us into our next question about blockchain and AI, but you want to go ahead and answer Jasmine's question?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And this all kind of goes back to, because I don't have the exact statistic, but hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested into technology with the sole objective of, how do I find the most appropriate employee with the right skill sets and the right culture fit to ensure that I don't have turnover. Turnover is wildly expensive for any organization. So they do exactly what you were just mentioning, which is, I want to purchase some AI software to run regressions on all of my applications, and they'll pick out 10 of the best ones. It sounds great in practice, right? You go, okay, I'm going to look for a couple keywords. It might be Ivy League school. It might be that they're hungry for innovation. Sure, it can scan those resumes. But back to my prior comments, it's only scanning a very narrow view of the applicant. And the reason it's scanning a very narrow view is that these AI systems don't have a holistic image of the applicants because of the data silos. And this is because when Alex Shaw applies for a job, the employer does not have access to, say, my performance records at Marquette University for my 2 years after graduating. They don't have access to, say, my GitHub to look at my code repositories. They don't have access to my stand-up or my public speaking. So this is all extremely relevant, and it can actually speak to my ability to communicate effectively, but that might not be observed in an AI regression currently ran with the data available, because the data that's really important to understanding who Alex Shaw is still hidden away in data silos. So once we can get a universal standard that the industry agrees on, and we can get a self-sovereign ID that actually has that dynamic view of the applicant, two exciting things happen. First off, employers can run regressions with AI that are orders of magnitude more accurate. But two, it costs money to access this data. And the assumption here is that the users own all the data. So who's going to get paid for these regressions? It's not going to be Apple. It's not going to be Google. It's actually going to be the person who created the data, the user. So I just love the ethos because it's going to create a better product for the employers. It's going to create a better culture for the employees. The employees get paid for their data, and now the HR department gets to work with the employees to design the perfect experience for these employees while they're getting paid, while there's a better experience. It's just like this flywheel of improved work and happiness, and it gets me really excited.
You can see I was pretty excited there. Who else is excited about this? You know, give me some thumbs up. um, so we are about 15 minutes to ending, and I'm actually going to end these talks 5 minutes early, so everybody can not have back-to-back meetings, and that you get 5 minutes to go get yourself a cup of coffee, do what you need to do, take a little rest before you're on to your next meeting. So in the next 10 minutes that we have, I would say next 5 minutes that we have, Alex here. Is there any other questions that anybody have for Alec regarding blockchain? I'll wait a few minutes here, or a few seconds to see if any comments pop up. Otherwise, I have one last question for Alec. So again, next 5 minutes or so, anybody have any questions for Alec? That we're talking about progressive HR and blockchain.
And if we want to talk about crypto, we can. I have plenty of opinions.
All right. So here's my last question, Alec. What would you say to the people that thought that blockchain died in 2017?
Great question. I would say that you need to zoom out. So there's this famous, I think it was Bill Gates. It was either Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. But they said you overestimate what can be done in a year, and you underestimate what can be done in 10. So this is what I think people, what plagued people in 2017. So there was a lot of investment money entering the blockchain and cryptocurrency space from, say, January 2017 to January 2019. During this time, people were incentivized to raise as much money as possible on the best valuation for the founders, which basically means you just hype up your company, in other words. And so this was a new technology, and people were leading their value proposition pitch saying, this is how my company is going to change the world. They led with blockchain. They said blockchain will be the thing to enable this immaculate future that I've been talking a little bit about today. But something that I hope the key takeaway from today's talk was that the 1 year thing we were disappointed by. The 10-year thing we will not be disappointed by, because what we're building is something, it's massive. It's a social change. It's a very practical way to break down incumbent power structures and competitive moats that these organizations have, and redistribute the wealth creation and value creation back to kind of this grassroots movement. And it's extremely large, it's powerful, it's a social movement, and it takes more than 1 or 2 years to do that. But now we've seen the technology deliver. You can go view the decentralized finance ecosystem on Ethereum, and you can't deny that it's flourishing. So the tech works. Now what we're doing is tackling those industry standards. The Velocity Talent Network is a great case study of building out these standards. And yeah, it's going to take a few more years to get these standards to be adopted. But once they are, the interoperability, the experience that people are going to have, it's like, I describe it kind of like the social score that's happening in China, which is a very bad thing because it's owned by the state, and the state can prohibit things like travel and infringe on your civil liberties according to that score. This is very similar, but instead of the government owning your score and having the ability to manipulate or change it or delete it, it's owned by you. And with that in mind, entrepreneurs are going to build new brilliant business models. I hope that we have some real political changes in society that enforce transparency and accountability in the government. And yeah, I just really hope that we have a exciting, transparent, equitable future that can be catalyzed by blockchain. And it is still coming, you 2017 people. It just takes a while to build.
Okay, well, anyone who would like to know more about blockchain can follow Alec Shaw on LinkedIn. Alec, is there any other place where people can know what you're doing or where you're going to be?
Yeah, so I would start by first sign up for our mailing list for the Midwest Blockchain Consortium. If you're a student, recent graduate, or even just someone who is passionate about working in the emerging technology space, just drop down a resume. What we do nearly full time now is just we talk with blockchain and cryptocurrency startups, foundations, as well as small to medium sized enterprises, all the way up to Fortune 500s. And they have the interest in doing consulting projects. They want to do proof of concept development. They even want to hire full-time engineers and kind of business strategists to really experiment with this emerging technology. So if that interests you, please reach out to me. You can find us on midwestblockchain.org. You can find us on LinkedIn. You can find us on Midwest Block C on Twitter. And then you can find me on Twitter at Agency Addict. If you didn't realize it, I like personal agency and personal freedoms. So find me at Agency Addict on Twitter. And then, yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. Please keep in touch. If you like chatting crypto, like chatting blockchain, like building cool, innovative software platforms, hit me up.
Thanks, Alec. And then if you're interested in what I'm doing, I talk a lot about progressive HR and the future of work and how we're all unique, resourceful humans. You can follow me at Corrine Woodman Hollebeck on LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter at Corrine Hollebeck. And as well, please follow us on the company page, Progressive HR. We are on LinkedIn. I will be doing Progressive HR Talks live every week, unless there's a holiday or I'm taking a vacation. And so this is our first episode. And our next episode is next week, October 1st, with David Marlowe, and we'll be talking about Ikigai. So thank you very, very much, Alec. I really appreciate your time today. And thank you, everybody that has joined the live stream today. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Nicole, and everybody else that is interested in progressive HR and blockchain. We'll see you next week. So we're ending a little bit early. I think everybody's I'm excited for next week. And so thank you, Alec. Appreciate your time.
Corinne, I had a ton of fun. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And yeah, if you got anything crypto, blockchain, or just want to say what's up, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful Thursday. Bye.
Bye, everyone. See you, Corinne.
See you, Alec.